Janice.
Hi, Sam.
Morning.
Okay, I'm open.
Janice, we can hear you just fine.
I know.
Just turn
I've got-
your video on. Just turn your video
I've got
on.
it. I have. I
Okay.
did. So it's,
I can see Janice.
oh, you can. I can see Carol. Okay.
Hi, Carol.
What we've got, Janice, is Greg has his screen up. So you're probably seeing a split. So don't
Yeah.
worry about it.
Okay.
Good. Hi, everybody.
Oh,
Hi, Sammy.
There's Sammy.
here we come.
Where's Sammy?
Sammy's here.
He's
I'm
there.
here
Hollywood
waving in the
Square.
corner.
I can only
There she
see.
is.
I can only
Ah,
see 3.
She doesn't have her professor hat on tonight.
Yeah, she does. Well, not really. Bobby, it's because you're on your tablet, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we have a big Thursday series, but I only get to see a few.
I know.
I
It's
could see 4 people until I moved the Thursday conversation series to the side. Now I can see 15 people.
Yeah, it just depends
Oh.
on what you do in that little view bar at the top right. You can do speaker, you can do, it's really exciting stuff. And thank you for being patient with us as we were troubleshooting. We thought we were going to have to beam Greg in from Washington State somehow. So we had to fix that.
Yes,
We got it.
We did. That's right. That's why we're starting with kind of the screenshots, but there's going to be plenty of time where we're going to be able to be all on screen without anything blocking us.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
I'm going to mute everybody now. So just bear with me as I get you all muted and stuff. And it looks like we've got Darcy and Caprice and Darla, all 3. Hi, you guys. And Bobby, I'm going to mute you. So you're muted. Sammy can be with us just for about 10 minutes, Greg.
Okay.
Then she has to skedaddle to work.
Work calls. It's okay.
Okay, so we're at 18. We'll probably have a couple more drift in, so.
And what are we looking at? Oh, it's almost 5 after.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, he got everybody. We're good.
Well, what do you think?
I think we should do it.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. It's good to see your faces. It's good to be back. And welcome to the final, but it's not the last conversation to end racism. And what I want to do is start off with, I want you to be very intentional with something right now. And I want you to have a pen and a piece of paper. I've got a little notepad, got my pen here. I want you to write down something for me. And it's the number 29. 29. We'll come back to that and why it's significant later. But I want you to be intentional and really write it down and put it before you where you can reference it later when I ask you to. Mine is right here in front of me. The focus of tonight is going to be on the final conversation, but again, not the last one of the 2020-2021 Thursday Conversation Series. And it's really a reflection and somewhat of a call to action. And what we're going to do is provide a kind of a recap of our work that we've done since September. We kind of bookended Labor Day with Memorial Day. And give you ample time for comments and discussion and digital mingling as we end out today, and we'll come full screen so you can see everybody and we can talk. But let's take a look at what we did in brief, kind of the highlights of our learning and our conversations that we did. And what we did is something that we really need in this country today. It's something that we really need to urge other people to do with us and to do amongst themselves. And what we did is we engaged in a civil and decent conversation about things that are really problematic in our country. And we talked and we learned and we opened up the windows and we allowed white, soft light to shine on the darkness of racism and hate, the windows opening up to the light of discrimination, inequality, inequity that's in our midst. And what we quickly observed as we began back in September was that these problems are not just somewhere else. They actually are on our doorstep and they're right in our community. And I saw evidence of that today with a post somebody sent me regarding a comedy show coming to town soon near you. And along the way, we paused to reflect and discuss an insurrection against our democracy and our government that happened. We stopped and paused and discussed the conviction of a police officer that was convicted of murder of a Black man. And we explored policing in America. And we witnessed the miraculous science in the development of vaccines, multiple vaccines for a pandemic, once in a lifetime experience for all of us, COVID. And as we paused to take account of history happening right before our eyes, we saw things that we may not have seen so clearly if we had not engaged in conversation about racism. Think for a minute. Think about what I mentioned about the events that happened that we witnessed during the time that we've been together since September. Think about this past year and those pressing issues that we witnessed. Elections, democracy, criminal justice, the pandemic, widespread illness and death, the development of vaccines, a savior. There is a clear thread that goes throughout every one of those. And you know what it is? It's racism. Inequality, inequity, and racism in elections, the insurrection, criminal justice, and even in the pandemic. Look who was disproportionately affected by death and illness, suffering, and with the savior, the vaccine. Who was disproportionately affected by that? It has to do with racism. It's right here in front of us. And now, as a result of the conversations and the opening up of these windows, shining the light, or as Jackie would say, we have a new lens now. And we can more easily see racism and the unfairness in our midst. So we got to keep continuing to open up more windows of light, air, shine on these systemic areas of racism and inequality and hate so that we can make change. And we examined the link of racism in our democracy. It's like a heavy weight. And we see that it's holding this country back in so many ways. And, you know, we broadened our focus for the spring series to look at democracy. And as we opened up more windows and shined more light, we saw one clear mandate. Until we solve racism, we will not have a more perfect union. So we clearly see that, how racism continues to prevail in our society and our systems, and we've got more work to do. So this is not the last conversation. It is the final for this series. And we want to thank you, the participants. We really developed into a really nice group, and you helped us open windows and windows of discovery, sharing your own thoughts, being brave, being courageous, You had good ideas and good commentary, so thank you for that. And we were able to see and understand racism and our own complicity in it because we worked together to really step back and look and practice humility and empathy. Through the gifts of dialogue with others we invited, we also learned so much. And that's where I wanted to take some time at the very top here is to give a special thanks to our guest speakers and the gifts that they gave us. Please pause and just think about each one of them. Very special people and the topics they shared with us as I read their names aloud. Jose Gonzalez, the importance of community. Tracy Hodgson, teaching truthful American history. Cheryl Kennedy, the rich history and culture of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, the largest Native American tribe in the state of Oregon. Taylor Morrow, racism, post-civil rights movement. Samantha Martinez, white women's tears, intersectionality, and cultural appropriation. Jackie McCoy, diversity and the danger of a single story. Yvette Shepard, anti-Blackness, tokenism. And Laura Zahn, teaching culturally sensitive curriculum. Thank you, guest speakers, for your gifts. And I guess give a digital applause to them and smile. Please stay in touch with us. Keep spreading and opening those windows. We have discussed so many ideas and concepts and issues in the last several months since we started in September. And coming together in conversation represented our starting point for creating change and fostering a much, much better world, even though we see more work to be done. So at this point, let's pause and deeply reflect about a couple things. And I want to see if we were able to paint a picture of our impact and purpose, thinking about our discussions that we've had. Most everyone has been with us pretty much the whole series. In a word or short phrase, what is your greatest hope for our country? Based on our discussion and study of racism and democracy, but in a short, like a word or a short phrase, what is your greatest hope for our country? And Lori, if you would put in the chat box a link there it is. If you would click on the link, it will take you out of our room and into a screen like this. And I see it populating with you. Just a couple in there. What is your greatest hope? And on the left-hand side of your screen here of our collaborative whiteboard, which actually is blue, there are some icons. And the fourth icon down is a sticky note. So I invite you to take a sticky note and respond with one word or a short phrase that really represents your highest hope based on our work. Truth-telling, an end to racism, the new administration, healing, much more acknowledgement and awareness that talking about racism isn't a trend, it's a beginning to a better world. I like it. And if you can't get in the whiteboard for some reason, don't worry. Feel free to put it in the chat box and Lori will put it on on the board, or we will read it aloud. Peace for those that have been injured. Amen to that. More listening, less talking, learning. We would live out our ideals. Let me get this one a little smaller. We can't get that smaller. There we go. Oh, wow. I'm good. Lori, are you able to grab those?
I am.
Are you grabbing them?
Yes, I'm pulling them off what we're getting in the chat.
Oh, good. Some of them are really big.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're able to grab them and resize them for me.
Oh,
Peace. Well, you wrote in there, but freehand, that's even better. I'm trying to get some of these are really big, or maybe it's just on my screen.
I think it is because mine are coming in normally here.
Okay. Very good, very good. More tolerance, less hate. Less fear of losing something by expanding access, equality. It's the zero-sum game notion.
Mm-hmm.
More tolerance, less hate. All right. Anything else?
I love this one. Believe other people's stories.
Yes.
And simply love.
Words matter. Love. Learn more from history. You got them out of the chat box, Lori?
I do.
Let me just say to you, ladies and gentlemen, this is our common purpose.
Mm-hmm.
This is our common purpose. To work toward these ideals. Respect. Robert put in respect. Thank you, sir. How has the conversation changed you? Who or what you are now? Do you have a word or a phrase that you could add in the chat box or on the blue board that would describe how the conversations have changed you? Like more aware, knowledgeable, confident, or maybe it's caused you to be something else, something different. My antennae are up for opportunities to learn and expand my view. Very good. So more opportunities for learning. And that is on the second page of the blue board, by the way. So if you're on your own blue board there, up on the top center, you would toggle over and you'll see this question. How has the conversations changed you, or who or what you are now? I am becoming an ally. Very good. More understanding of the concerns folks are experiencing at the core of these conversations. Very good. Very good. Learning. Anything else on there? How has it changed you? Stepping out of my comfort zone, owning my stuff. Like it. Think back when we started this in September. I don't know about you, but you know, it's nervous. I was nervous. For a variety of reasons. Anything else on the chat box there, Lori?
Yes, and I'm putting it in right now.
Okay. Let me know what it looks like there.
Okay.
We're about done, and then we'll continue on. I like it though, it's nice.
I love that one. I am just different.
Can't put my finger on it, but I'm just different.
Yeah.
Different is good.
And that just, wow.
Yeah. I'm just different. Okay. All right. Anything else in there, Lori?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, let's bring us back
Okay.
to where we were. In the chat box. So we looked at what our greatest hope was and who and how it's changed us. And that really represents our common purpose. Anti-racist. What's new is in green. I've been a criminal justice professor at Western Oregon University for, someone said recently, a long time. I'm a 42-year practitioner and student of criminal justice. Been studying it since I was 19. And a 29-year veteran of police service from frontline to executive level. And today I'm an anti-racist, thank you. Truth teller, advocate, ally, inspiration, I hope, and a change maker, I pray. I used to be a non, but now I'm an anti, and you can become one too. And again, I seriously invite you to make that commitment, learn the difference. We will help you. And that really is our message. And it's a lifelong journey. That's a pretty interesting looking cat there, huh? I mean, guy with lots of white privilege, former police, lost a lot of friends that I used to work with who dug in and don't understand. Let's get others to join us. Let's continue the conversation to get others to join this movement, continue the conversation, become anti-racist and move from the comfort of being non-racist to anti-racist. And if you ask, or they ask, How do I do that? I'm interested, but how do I do that? What we've learned, what I've learned, is that it takes a paradigm shift in our thinking and in our vision. And again, as Jackie would say, a change of lens. But now's the time, today's the day, because we have the greatest opportunity, I firmly believe this, for changing things since the civil rights movement ended in 1968. And humanity's asking, when will we finally get racism right? Can you imagine being an anti-racist, doing a bit more to create a more perfect world? More than just claiming I'm not a racist, this is not enough to fix the problem. So how do we do it? Moving from a non-racist to anti-racist, what are the steps? I'm going to show you real quick. First one is practice humility. And we talked about that during our first session, racial humility. It's less hubris and more humility. It's getting people, we did it in September, is to open up and recognize I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to take the risk of saying something stupid, even racist, unintentionally, and to learn and to put, I think I know it, aside and to see what this is really all about, right? Practice humility, open up, open up. Step number 2, increase our self-awareness. Once you are opened up and you're humble, you recognize who you are. And we would do things like, let's look at how diverse our universe is and our world is. If it looks like yourself, it's not diverse enough. How can you understand others? How can you understand the racial hierarchy that's present in this country? And it goes something like this: white, Asian, Hispanic, Black, in that order. The power is at the top. Equality and equity is stronger at the top. You have to become self-aware and you have to be willing to reach out, right? And explore other cultures. It's that multiculturalism. It's that intersectionality. And it goes beyond race. Step up number 3, learn the language of racism. This is where we would spend the most time. In my journey since we started, I've written down every word and phrase that I didn't understand. And it's a lengthy list. Lori did a great job in our email this week about the pages of notes that we have and the richness of the hours of discussion that we've had. Thank you, Lori. I thought that was very revealing and good and interesting. And you learn things like, what is intersectionality? What is prejudice? What is bias? What is racism? What is anti-racist? What's a non-racist? We learn what that is. And once you learn the language of racism, which takes some time, what's a storyline? Then you can develop racial empathy. You will not experience what it's like to be at the bottom of the hierarchy unless you're part of that ethnicity or race, but you will have the closest experience to understand what it must be like to be Black, to be Asian, to be Hispanic, and to have discrimination, inequality, unfairness. Step up number 5, discover the truth of our history is the time after you really can appreciate and understand the walk of others that are different than we are, and to then look at our history both nationally and locally. And it's an eye-opener and kind of depressing, kind of a downer for a few days and weeks to really see that. You can start with the real story of Christopher Columbus.
Mhm.
It's depressing. It's shocking. And learning to become an anti-racist is not a zero-sum game. So when you're getting others to join the movement, it's not like they got to give up something. It doesn't work that way. It's about meeting people where they are and creating opportunity for people so that it's fair. But you got to know the history, and you got to know the roads they've walked. Then you become an anti-racist. Then you become an anti-racist. The 5 steps. Will you join me? '29. Take a look at it. Look down at it. We have engaged in 28 conversations together. The time has now come to go forth and engage in that 29th conversation. And that is your go point. That is your call to action. Go have that 29th conversation with somebody. We'll help you. I will help you. In fact, I'll give you a resource that is helpful within that 29 that you might find helpful. And let's see if I can zero our screen in on it, but it's called the Franklin Project. Brand new launched. We don't have to agree on everything, but just democracy. Okay? We want conversations about the important issues facing our nation to be synonymous with progress, not the ruined family dinners with Uncle Bob and the fallouts with neighbors. But they offer some resource here, and we'll put it in the notes. It's the franklinproject.us, Lori.
Mhm.
How to start a conversation, pick a topic, and they even have conversational topics as conversation starters. They don't have to be these. Civics, voting rights, American Jobs Plan. It can be racism. It can be what you're comfortable with. Make the conversation count. Be intentional. We were. Identify common ground. We did that in the very beginning, but didn't find we needed it much after that. Commit to civility. We did that. We always were. It's not personal. As I used to say, it's business. It's not personal. It's not personal. But our democracy is in the balance. And have a plan if it gets ugly. We did. It's still tucked away. Set a time and a place. Go online. Take the conversation online if you want. Don't have to. But that's a resource for you. The Franklin Project. And I want to see your beautiful faces. I want to give a special thanks to Fred for his leadership and his uncomfortable spirit last summer, like mine. And he says, we got to start a conversation. I've had enough. We need to end racism. I said, Fred, what do you want the conversation to be about? What's the goal? What's the purpose? Me being planful. He says, to end racism. Oh, holy moly, Father. That's just a little bit of a call, but okay, I guess, because I'm sick and tired of it too. And I see it from my history where I grew up as an adult in criminal justice. And so thank you, Fred, for your leadership and for making the call to get a conversation going. And it's now trending. Way to go. And then the special, very, very grateful, and I admire her so much, is Lori Cole. Thank you for all your technical support and help. You did so much for us and made it work so well, putting out the notices, the marketing, the notes, compiling things. Thank you so very much. It put icing on top of a nice cake.
Thank you.
Really, really nice. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and give it over to Fred. Thank you all very much. Let's all stay in touch. And this is time to digitally mingle. So I'll let Fred kind of lead that. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Lori. This has been, and thank you to everyone here. This has been an amazing project. And you know, you think about it, we started this a school year ago. And even though the schools were closed most of this year physically, this group kept going with 1 week off. Well, we had some planned weeks, but the one that we counted on was the Valentine's week when we had the ice storm, and we simply didn't have the internet. And so that was one thing we could add to that amazing list that Greg gave us of the things that have happened this year. I just have a few thoughts that I want to mention from my perspective in watching this, and perhaps a lifetime of being engaged in many of these activities. And like, you know, one of the things that Greg and Laurie and I agreed to at the beginning of this year was that we were racists. We admitted that to each other. And then we went from there. But I guess, you know, one of the questions that I would leave with you is, what do we have to lose? What do we have to lose if we, you know, step up to Uncle Bob and we say, Uncle Bob, you're wrong. You know, there's going to be some confrontations as we go along. And, you know, I find myself during this year, and I don't know as I did this before, but I see like a Black family or an Asian family or Native American. And I don't say anything to them as we're walking along, but I give them a smile and just acknowledge them and look them in the eye. And I think, you know, we've done that for so long with military veterans to thank them for their service. But I think that these groups that we've been talking about and learning about could use a smile from someone who doesn't look like them. And you know, I think that would be a good thing for us to begin to do. And it doesn't take any laws or anything. It's just a human thing for us to do. I love the dreamer business that Greg talked about tonight. And so the dare, I guess, that I would make to this group is, let's dare to dream. Let's dare to dream that we can do something about this. And that's kind of where it starts. We've got to be, in these times, we've got to be constantly aware of the restrictions that are placed on voting. And I don't know if you've been following what's been going, the mess, and that's what it is in Arizona, where they've got these, they're not even charlatans, they're incompetents, they're destroying our system there. And make no mistake about it, that can happen anywhere. And so, you know, I think we've got to be very, very much aware of that. And I think another thing that we need to do, and I say this as a former elected public official, I think we need to go to these town hall meetings that we're invited to, and we have to raise questions. Where do you stand, Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. Representative, or whatever you happen to be? Where are you on this issue? Where are you on the voting rights issue in the Congress? Where are you about filibuster? Where are you on all of these other issues? And when they give you a kind of a namby-pamby answer, I think it's important for us to go back and say, you didn't answer my question. Would you answer my question? And you can do that politely. You can do that. You don't need a gun. You can do that politely, and you can just keep at it until they answer your question. And that I think is terribly, terribly important. And let me give you another thing that Lori called to our attention today, and Greg referred to it. On July 3rd, there's going to be a comedian. He's a quote comedian, and he's coming to the Grand Theater in Salem. And he's a racist. And they've talked apparently to, as I read this material that Lori sent us today, they've talked to the owner of the venue, and he talks about the issues that we have in our time, and it's good to have all sides and all this sort of thing. Well, this guy is a racist, and you know, that's what he is. And so there's some talk about demonstrations on July 3rd. And I would say, you know, as Adair and I were talking today, we all have a good network. I mentioned Carol Christ, who I hear from Carol quite a lot. I know she's got a lot of connections. I know many of you have connections. And so I think it's going to be important for us when we do get all of this information, to get the word out. If there's going to be a demonstration that day, I intend on being there. And I hope that you all will join me. People like this, there's no room for them in Salem. There's no room for them in the city of peace. And I think we have to let them know that they're not welcome here. So it's going to take some guts from time to time. It's going to take some courage to stand up to your local public officials. It's going to take some, you know, talking to Uncle Bob in your family. It's going to take dreaming, and then I think we can move the ball down the court. I think we can make real progress during our lifetimes, and that's what we started out talking about at the very beginning of this year. So I'm just so happy to be here with you, and I can't think of a better way to spend Thursdays. And like Lori said today, she's going to miss this, and so am I. But who knows? We might be doing something else along the line and the way, and so we'll see. I'd like to open this now for any discussion that you might have. We've got just about 35 minutes, and I'd like to know, I know Greg would and Lori would, what's on your mind. We're open.
Fred, okay.
Janice.
Janice, big. Sunday Statesman Journal, you said a few things about Statesman along the way, but Statesman Journal did an article on the day in the life of and followed 3 BIPOC people through their lives in Salem, and how at this point they're afraid to walk down the street alone. They're afraid to go to the park alone. We've got to change that. We can't have,
Right.
It's more racist now apparently than it's ever been for these people that have lived here all their lives, and we can't let that happen.
Let me tell you something about that. And I heard, that's one of the things that I learned as we went along, that people like Yvette Shepherd and others who taught me this business about the talk that Black folks have with their children when they're growing up. I never thought I would do this. My children are raised, but some of you know my best friend lives in California near San Jose, and he's Asian American. He's 2nd generation. And I had the talk with him a couple of weeks ago. It was not, and somebody said, how did he take it? Well, he took it because I laid it out. But, you know, yeah, Janice, I really felt that when I had to do that. But I care about him. And that's what, you know, that Statesman Journal article, that was very well done. But I think it would be really, really good if as we see folks around our city that are different than us, remember that smile, and that's what you can do. That's what we can do right now. Hello.
I found something in the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to put it in the summary. And it's a wonderful resource. I love to search. And this is free, and it's called BillTrack 50. And you just punch in parameters, state by state by state, topic by topic. It'll toss up House bills, Senate bills in each state. For example, if you pull up voting rights and look at all the bills across the country that are trying to suppress people from voting. So I'm going to put this in, and that's an example of a link to get on their mailing list. Let them pepper your inbox every day with, hey, were you aware of this? Because this is how we can be active and how we can put our activism to work.
Oh, that's a good point, Lori. And just ask yourselves, just think you don't need to answer this here, but just ask yourself, how many of you know people in Arizona? How many of you know or have family there, or in Florida, or in Georgia, or in Texas? It's like somebody said the other day, and we have our son and his wife live in Texas, in Houston. But somebody said the other day, it's now, when the governor signs this bill, it's going to be easier to own a gun in Texas than it is to vote. Think about that. Think about that. And so think, if you have friends or family in any of these other states, now's the time to step up and send them an email or a letter or whatever and say, oh, by the way, and talk to them about that. Because there are people, they just don't give a rip about voting or what's going, or they don't pay attention to what's going on in terms of laws. But you can make a difference.
Well, and it's also so simple. I remember when Katrina hit New Orleans.
Yeah.
And there were so many people that said, I don't understand. Why didn't these people just get in their car and get out of the ward that flooded?
Yeah.
And you have to stop and realize that not everybody owns a car.
Yeah.
And when public transportation stops, there was no way to get out. So it's putting ourselves in other shoes to understand what the limits are and what the challenges are. Same day registration to vote. Why is that wrong? Why, yada, yada, yada. Okay, you shut down voting at 5 o'clock instead of 8 o'clock at night. So what? Well, if you're working 3 jobs and you don't get off till 7:30 and you got to catch the bus to the polling place, it is a big deal. And it's
let me pick up on that, Lori. Something that on the vote by mail, and I just want to. This is in my book. I've just finished my autobiography, and it's going to the publisher soon. But let me just say this: it's a story that I tell in there. Secretary of State Norma Paulus was a Republican Secretary of State, and I was very fond of her. I'm of course I'm a Democrat. I was president of the Senate. We worked closely together. One day she came in and she said, Brett, I want to talk to you about something. She said, a vote by mail. And she explained it to me. I raised my eyebrows and she said, oh, I know what you're thinking. She said, get over it. She said, listen to me. And so I listened to her. And so that was the first little step that we took in vote by mail in Oregon. And then we expanded, and this was 1981. And then we expanded it to, I think 1995 was the first time we used vote by mail for a federal election in Oregon. So it took all that time. I'm not aware of any corruption that we've had as a result of that. But what I am aware of is that Oregonians vote and they use that vote by mail. And I'm not aware of any corruption that's emerged from it. And so vote by mail. And then since then, other secretaries have expanded it to include voter registration when you register to your car, a driver registration when you register your car, then voting is involved in it. And, it's been greatly expanded. It's a great system. And so, but that's how it started. And so now they give some of these states that want to cut back on the numbers of people, like mostly people of color, then that's the first thing they want to attack. And like Laurie said, change the voting to hours, get rid of the boxes where they can drop off their ballots. There's all kinds of ways you can do that. So anyway, that's a little vignette.
Mhm.
Yes, Galen.
One change that I've noticed in myself since September, I'm learning more about, I already knew quite a bit about racism, as I received anti-racism training in the 80s,
Yeah.
90s, but I learned a lot more through this. And what I found happening is a growing intolerance. I'm no longer going to be silent when, I hear or see racist things. I'm intolerant of that. I'm not willing to say, well, that's their opinion, or boys will be boys, or live and let live. No, hell no. That is so not okay. And I think that maybe as a nation, we've become too tolerant and trying to accept everybody's position, everybody's belief, everybody's opinion, and it just doesn't work when it's so clearly wrong. When there's just no way to justify racism. There's no way to justify suppression of voting rights. I mean, I've become just outrageously intolerant, and I kind of like it because I always envisioned myself being a crotchety old lady.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of liking it, and I also like that people. I don't have any close friends who are overtly racist and things like that, but my significant other does. He has friends who belong to that other group, and I noticed they walk on tiptoes around me and are very careful about what they say, and there's things I don't discuss, because I know that, but I'm just not willing to let it go anymore.
For you.
This is a really good topic that you brought up, and I'm going to include in the summary a wonderful article I read recently about the intolerance tolerance. So stay tuned for that, because it's, as years and years ago, a very dear friend of mine told me that I was intolerant of the intolerant.
Yeah.
And he said it as a slam to me. And it really, really bothered me, because he was right. I was very intolerant of the intolerant. Now I'm happy about it.
Me too. I think it's a badge of honor.
Yeah.
I think, I've had people say to me, well, what we need to do is sit down and all of us reason together. But, I've reached the conclusion that sometimes with some people, I don't want to sit down and reason with them. They have nothing they can sell me. And that's just a conclusion that I've reached. And it's a waste of my time to sit and reason with somebody that, like Congresswoman Green from Georgia. I have absolutely no interest. I know she's one of Darla's favorite people. I have no interest in I'm getting a finger shaking. Yeah, Darla was in my office this week and told me about that. But I think, I have no interest in sitting down with her and talking with her and trying to reach some agreement. We're not going to convince, I'm not going to convince her. She's not going to convince me. It's a waste of time. And so sometimes we have to realize that. David?
Oh, I was just going to say that that's kind of where I'm at. I heard Kennedy speak when he was at OSU, and somebody asked him that question. And he said, hey, he said, I can give them all the facts. I can give them all the data. I can sit there and tell them all the arguments, and it doesn't mean anything to them. So I've given up on that. I just don't even try. And I have found that, and then I read another person who's a person of color in another book saying, I'm exhausted at doing that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, I really like what he said about the growing intolerance. I think, I think that's one of the things I've done. And when people are like that, I just, it's like, fine. It's just gotten to the point where you get exhausted. But maybe I'm trying to figure out statements I can make, possibly. Like, non-racist. Well, that's actually being a racist. Are you an anti-racist? Maybe I can throw that out there, and see if it goes anywhere. Maybe throw out a couple of things like that we've learned to see if it lands on them. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. And then you kind of move on. But that's what I'm doing is I'm writing down sentences like, single story that we learned, no, you're making this a single story. It's much more complicated than that. And if they don't want to hear that, I'll move on, things like that. But I'm writing down little sentences that I possibly could respond to see if the door opens. But then, yeah.
That's good, David.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much.
That's part of that learning, what I believe is learning the language of racism.
Yeah.
And you learn that terminology, but also then you start getting into what are the storylines you hear, like, my family never owned slaves, so what are you talking about? And so you learn how to respond to those storylines. I'm teaching a class, the next week is the last class. It's a brand new one on, I should name it the George Floyd class, because that's what stimulated the creation of it, but it's on race and law enforcement in America. And one of the students in there is very racist, doesn't know it, but he's extremely racist. And so at first I was like, oh man, it just makes me anxious, but then I quickly realized he helps me learn. And so through his storylines he gives about, he's got Irish ethnicity in his history. And so, he used like, well, the Irish, they were oppressed and they came over here and they were just
nobody wanted them.
Together. Why can't the blacks just get it together, and then we got to talk about black on black crime. And so I had to learn how to respond to those, what we call storylines, which is actually, he's been a gift.
Yeah.
Because, like you, David, I'm just writing it down. And then I think, how do you respond to that?
Yeah.
So as you go out and do number 29, don't forget number 29.
Yeah.
As you go out and do that, and it's great practice. It's a gift. And you can, you don't have to get into an argument. You can, if you get stumped or a button's pressed, you just like, I don't know. What did you say again? And it's like, I just don't know if I agree with that. And you can leave it at that and then come back and you can follow up later. I do that with that student. It's like, and so I like that, David, what you said. And then the intolerant of intolerance, Lori's. Today I was thinking, I didn't know if it was a phrase, the historic history. Historic history. The last year we've been together since September to now, history has been historic. I'm like, we are living in historic times. I was making my little notes thinking, the historic history that we lived through in the last, I don't know if that's a proper use of English, but it has been historic. And then you step back, as I mentioned, and you look for the common thread that's in a lot of those things that are pressing our country and our persona today. It's racism. And I submit to you that a lot of that is what we said early on, and I showed you a chart. The browning of America is causing pressure. And this voting rights issue we're seeing is part of that pressure. It's all about trying to maintain supremacy, power, and superiority in the racial hierarchy that we have. And it's intentional in a lot of ways. They won't say it to you publicly, but it's intentional because they fear it's a zero-sum game. If God forbid the whites have a slip down in that hierarchy I mentioned, we got to give something up.
Mhm.
And I really think that's what we're seeing today because the numbers are clear. We are browning and the voting and they said, they see what we said. The people that are voting age now and younger are no longer majority white.
Right.
They're brown, and that scares people.
One of the things that we've talked about tonight is that we have all been on a journey of learning, and part of it was the vocabulary. And again, in my book, I tell a story about when I was a carrier when I was a little boy for the Oregon Journal, the old Portland Oregon Journal in Klamath Falls. And well, it was in Portland, but in Klamath Falls where I was a carrier. And I worked, you had to do that 7 days a week. So I had this buddy lived down the street from me, and he was Black. And he and I were about the same age. And so I asked Delmer if he would be interested in doing a Sunday morning delivery for me. And I, of course, would pay him. And so he said yes. And so I mentioned it to my boss. And he said, that's fine with me. But he said, since he's colored, he said, you're going to have to go to all of your customers and ask them if it's okay if he delivers their morning newspaper. And so I did that. And everybody on my route said, yeah, it's fine. And so I recounted this in my book, and I referred to Delmer historically in those times as what we called a Negro. So my friend Jim Johnston, who is my pen pal from Belfast, Ireland, has been reading my book and making comments, and it's been very helpful because one of the things that he said was the word Negro, even historically, is verboten in Ireland. And so he said, African-American, Black, whatever. Well, then I was reading the presiding bishop, Michael Curry of the Episcopal Church, of his book, and he discussed that whole question. And he said he chose in his book to use capital B for Black, capital W for white. And he said that's the Black Journalists Society is what they have agreed to. So I have historically, then I changed Delmer is now Black in my book and not a Negro. And so that's something, and with this group that we've had since September, that's something I was heightened to when Jim mentioned it to me. And so then I changed it. So part of this too, this year, we've talked about learning, but it's been learning in so many different ways. And so that's one thing that I've learned this year. Let's see, I think Janice or Rich had a comment.
Right.
Yeah, Janice.
Yeah, I was thinking it's about time I reread White Fragility.
Yeah.
Because the people that we're going to be talking to and intolerant of their intolerance are going to give us the kind of response that she spoke about in that book. The defensiveness, oh, not me, and all those kind of things. And so I was thinking about that. And I also, when I titled this tonight's thing in my notebook, I wrote the last conversation, and then I wrote of this session.
Right.
Because I cannot see this ending. This has been very, very important to both of us. And my thing is finding so many more Black authors to read and realizing how much literature I've missed because I've wanted to read the light, fluffy stuff. And now I'm realizing, no, I need to get some meat, and I need to alternate. I can't eat heavy meat all the time, but I think I need more learning what it's like inside the skin of someone different than me.
Can I
Thank
suggest a book, and maybe some of you know it already, because moved into Asian hate a little bit. Minor Feelings. Does anybody know that book?
I do.
Minor Feelings, An Asian American Reckoning, Kathy Park Hong, Hong. She's actually a poet, but she said, I'm tired of being a poet. I can do better writing essays. So
Very good.
Minor Feelings, I tell you. And there's right here, she throws in the white women's tears and the Black Lives Matter. It says it in a different way, but uses all of that single story, just kind of references that. And you're kind of going, oh, I know what she's talking about. It's kind of fun. So
No,
Thank you.
I wanted to just,
she's Korean. She's Korean.
Korean. Thank you, David. I wanted to just ask any of you that would like to share emails with each other, that it's okay to have a group, that if you would share your emails with our group, if you could let Lori know. And then she'll give you the list of everybody so that you can contact individual or as a group if you want to. And the journey is not over. The conversations are not over. It's just this series is over, the 2021 series. And between Labor Day and Memorial Day was a nice piece of time. We didn't really know it or appreciate its time, I don't think so much, but it's a good time to now step out, step up, think about those 5 steps, and to, over the summer, really see where you could go individually. But we are all alumni of this process. And so we want to be able to stay connected together because we have more power as a group. But we can also venture out on our own. And, we all have our own areas of influence and expertise that you can marry up and do this number 29, metaphorically. The number 29, the 29th conversation.
Any other thoughts? Yes, Bobby.
Next week, and I wish I could remember the date, but on CBS and PBC at the same time, there's going to be the Tulsa race, the
Yes.
Tulsa massacre. It's an
Monday.
hour on CBS and it's an hour and a half on PBS. So we're taping both of them to see, which the different perspectives.
And the
So
president, he was going or is going, has gone or is going down there. So I'm not sure that he's been there yet, but I heard that he's going down. So there'll be a really big deal. So it should be. Any other thoughts or comments?
I'm going to put in the chat box a link that I found very interesting about the formation of American policing, and I used it in my class. And you can listen to it if you're tired of reading, because it's an NPR podcast, or you can look at the transcript. But it is rich in how we started with slave patrols, and before we even were a country, that's how policing in this country kind of formed. But it also gives you a really good history of the timeline of racism throughout our history and some of the current struggles that we still have. It's very well done.
One of the pictures that I have this year is the picture in my mind of the governor of Georgia when he signed that voting rights bill, which greatly restricts voting. And it's where that state representative was arrested when she knocked on the door and tried to get in. And it was, I think it was 8 white guys that were standing on either side of the governor underneath a painting of a plantation house. Think about that.
Yeah.
with the doors closed and the state police standing at the door. And you know, all the governors that I've worked with, I can't imagine any of them. If a member of the legislature, one, I can't imagine that they would close the doors when they're signing a bill as important as a voting rights bill. But if they were closed, a member of the legislature knocked on their door, arrested on a felony charge. That's just beyond me.
Well, and it is, it's beyond me too, but this is Georgia
Yeah,
and he's white and she was black.
yeah.
But you know, another concept that's troubling is the that I noticed. I now am fully vaccinated with this great science we have, so I've been going out into the world more. And one of my favorite places is the city of Portland, and I'm telling you, she's wounded.
Yeah.
Hot.
Yeah.
But there are some symbolisms there that, I mean, there's a lot of also, you spend enough time, you see areas of regeneration that will just make you smile, and they're making it work. Anywhere from, you know, street side cafes that are popping up now that are safer and whatnot, and just making it work. But there's a real oddity in, like, in downtown, the police bureau, the courthouse, the Justice Center is all boarded up, and there's nowhere to be found. I lectured about that this week in my class, about how it has the appearance that the police ran off with their tail between their leg and they're nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, yeah.
I just can't believe that we allow.
Greg, you remember the district attorney, when he took office in January, announced he wasn't going to prosecute those cases.
Right. I don't know. I just think it's troubling.
Yeah.
Too.
The symbolism of it all. It's like, you know, you can really, but I know it's a tough thing there. I mean, as we saw last night, so, or night before last, whenever that was.
Yeah.
Martin, you okay? Okay.
Yeah. Just thinking.
Yeah, that's good. That's what this is about. A lot of it's thinking, right? And,
Yeah, I was thinking about 29 and I got it wrong. I thought your point was it was the 11th prime number.
Nope, it's the 29th go point for you.
Darla, do you have any wisdom for us?
Say it again.
Say it again.
Say it again.
Thank you.
Say it again, what you
What?
said.
Thank you.
No, I wish.
Oh,
Say that.
I wish for everyone to be equal. I do.
Amen.
Thank you, Darla. You're a sweetheart.
Oh, very.
You are.
We agree.
Darla and Darcy came into my office this week just to visit, so that we could see each other, and it was just so nice to see them and just to visit, and nothing heavy, nothing on anybody's mind, but just to see each other. You're
Say it.
there we go.
Say it again. Say it again.
385th Bomb Group,
Trinity Sunday Bulletin.
Trinity Sunday. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. We love you.
Well, we love you too.
Well, I think this has been amazing, the series, and I'd like to see it to continue maybe this next fall, you know, just continue on and do different aspects like the Asian culture and even that, you know, just for more awareness, because this has been very eye-opening and very helpful.
You've missed it.
And just be able to be a part of this has been wonderful. So thank you, Greg and Father Fred and everybody else, Laurie. I mean, this is a good opportunity for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy.
Thank you.
And Janet, hello.
Hello. It's good to
How
see
are
everybody.
you?
I'm well. I've been thinking that I wanted to share something, and it's very seemingly insignificant, but I was shopping the other day, and I was just coming out to my car, And two young Black men got out of their car. And as they were passing, one of them turned to me and smiled and said, "How are you?" And my heart just did me so much good. We were able to have that moment, which before, I think both of us would have looked the other way. And it was like there was a moment where we each said, "I see you." And that was very touching to me. And since then, I've had other occasions to have that same thing happen. And you know, in my life, at my age, if I gain nothing more than that to show respect and empathy for people who don't look like me, I think I will have learned a lot. Yeah.
Wow.
Wonderful times. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janet. Really glad you've been a part of this.
Thank
That
you.
was very significant to me.
Bobby?
It was
I
just
said I said what Janet said was very significant to me.
very
Yeah.
profound.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we're right at 6:30, guys. It's time.
Okay, well,
Bye.
thank you so much for your participation, and we love you all. And we're going to miss you, but we're going to stay in touch. Thank you, Greg and Lori.
Thank you for doing this.
Greg.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Greg.
you.
Thanks,
Be
Greg.
safe.
Thanks,
Stay
Lori.
in touch.
Thanks to all of you.
Bye.
Okay.
soon.
Bye-bye. Be safe.